Good day everyone! Welcome to Criminology. Matuto ka with us. I'm Cheska Maris Mendihe.
And I am Giselle Nabol.
I'm Ralph Reynel Molabnan.
For today's video, we're going to tackle about the development of Philippine Coast Guard and its function.
Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, Pilipino Tanod Baybayin ng Pilipinas, is recognized as the third armed uniformed service of the country. Attached to the Philippines Department of Transportation, tasked primarily with enforcing laws within Philippine waters, conducting maritime security operations, safeguarding life and property at sea, and protecting marine environment and resources. Similar to Coast Guard units around the world. In the case of declaration of war, the Coast Guard shall also serve as an attached service of the Department of National Defense.
Ang Philippine Coast Guard ay nagpapatupad ng batas sa karagatan ng Pilipinas. Parte rin sila ng DOTR o nagtatransfer ng tao o bagahe sa ibang lugar.
History of Philippine Coast Guard.
Colonial era. The Philippine Coast Guard is the oldest and only humanitarian armed service in the Philippines. Its beginning could be traced back to the early 20th century when coast guarding was related to the protection of the coastal services of the country and in patrolling the coastlines and harbors. When the American came in 1998, one of the first steps that the military government undertook was the reopening of the port and costume facilities of Manila. Soon after, the civilian insular government, through the Philippines Commission, enacted a law on October 17, 1901 that created the Bureau of Coast Guard and Transportation, which was placed under the Department of Commerce and Police.
So, ang colonial era ng PCG, its beginning could be traced back to the early 20th century kung saan ang pagbabantay sa baybayin ng isang costume service na kailangan nilang proteksjonal at magpatrol sa mga baybayin at daungan ng bansang Pilipinas. In 1898, nang dumating ang mga Amerikano, ang unang hakbang na isinigawa ng pamahalang militar ay ang pagbubukas o muling pagbubukas ng daungan ng mga pasilidad ng costume sa Maynila. In October 17, 1901 naman, ang civilian insular government ay nagpatupad ng batas sa pamamagitan ng Philippines Commission na lumikha ng Bureau of Coast Guard and Transportation at ito ay inilagay sa ilalim na or pamamahala ng Department of Commerce and Police.
Post-war era. After gaining independence from the United States shortly after the end of the World War II, the Philippines government transferred some of the Coast Guard functions, such as the revenue cutter and lighthouse services, to the Philippine Naval Patron, which eventually became the Philippine Navy. A Coast Guard unit was activated within the Philippine Navy to implement these functions. On August 6, 1967, the Philippine Congress enacted Republic Act 5173 of the Philippine Coast Guard Law, which made the PCG a major unit of the Philippines Navy under the flag officer. The PCG was activated on October 10, 1967, and its Coast Guard functions were transferred from the Navy.
On post-war era, matapos ang World War II at makamit ng bansang Pilipinas ang kalayaan mula sa Estados Unidos ay inilipat ng government ng Pilipinas ang mga ilan sa function ng Coast Guard tulad ng revenue cutter and lighthouse services sa Pilipinas Naval Patrol na tinatawag na ngayon na Philippine Navy. In August 6, 1967 naman, ang Republic Act 5173 ng Philippine Coast Guard Law. Ito ay pinagtibay ng mga Kongreso ng Philippines kung saan ang PCG or Philippine Coast Guard ay ginawang pangunahing unit ng hukbong dagat ng Pilipinas na pinagtibay sa pamamagitan ng watawat ng Pilipinas. Noong October 10, 1967 naman ang PCG ay isinagawa na at ang mga tungkulin nito ay inilipat mula sa hukbong dagat.
Contemporary history. The civilian nature of the PCG functions led to the separation of the Coast Guard from the Philippine Navy on March 30, 1998 by virtue of Executive Order 475 signed by President Fidel Ramos. The order effectively transferred the PCG from the Department of National Defense to the Office of the President, and eventually to the Department of Transportation and Communication, DOTC. On April 15, 1998, by virtue of Executive Order 477, these executive orders provided inter alia that the PCG shall continue to be the agency primarily responsible for the promotion of safety of life and property at sea and the protection of the maritime environment as mandated under the Philippine Coast Guard Law and Presidential Decrees 600, 601, 602, and 979 as amended. The transformation of the PCG into a non-military organization has a tremendous impact and significance. Its civilian character has allowed it to receive offers of vessels, equipment, technology, services, cooperation, and other needed assistance from other countries, something which would not be readily offered to the military agency.
Sa contemporary history naman, noong March 30, 1998, ang pagiging civilian nature ng PCG ay humantong sa separation from Philippine Navy sa pamamagitan ng visa or virtues Executive Order 475 at ito ay nilagdaan ni President Fidel Ramos. The order effectively transferred the PCG from the Department of National Defense to the Office of the President at kalaunan ay sa kagawaran ng Transportation and Communication which is DOTC noong April 15, 1998 sa bisa ng Executive Order 477. Ang mga executive order na ito ay nagbigay ng inter alia na ang PCG ay dapat patuloy na maging ahensyang pangunahing responsible para sa pagtataguyod ng kaligtasan ng buhay at ari-arian sa dagat at ang proteksyon ng kapaligirang pandagat as mandated under the Philippine Coast Guard Law and Presidential Decrees 600, 601, 602, and 979. Ang pagbabago ng PCG sa isang non-militar na organization ay may napakalaking epekto at kahalagahan. At dahil dito, ang characters ng civilian has allowed to receive the offers tulad ng sasakyan dagat, kagamitan, technology, serbisyo, or cooperation at iba pang kinakailangan tulong mula sa ibang mga bansa.
Admiral Artemio Manalo Abu was born and raised as the second child among the 11 siblings of Mr. and Mrs. Benjamin and Day Abu of Barangay Luta Sur, Malbar, Batangas. He has served as the Director for Academics and full-time instructor at the Coast Guard Education and Training Command, where he has been assigned as course director of 3 Coast Guard officer courses. He has also served as an evaluator of the Maritime Training Council of the Philippines, which inspects and accredits a maritime training institution in the country. As a Coast Guard officer, he has been assigned as provincial head of the Coast Guard in Camarines Provinces, Province of Masbate, and Puerto Princesa City in Palawan. He has also served as commanding officer of various category of PCG ships, where he has earned the most coveted command at sea badge. All of the units which Admiral Abu has commanded both ashore and afloat had the distinction as Best Unit of the Year at the national level. He was also assigned as the commander of Coast Guard Ready Force, which oversees the career management of officers and men who are assigned aboard ship, as well as the maintenance and operational readiness of floating assets of the Philippine Coast Guard. He was also assigned as the District Commander of Coast Guard District Southern Tagalog, covering the provinces of Batangas, Quezon, Marinduque, Oriental Mindoro, and Occidental Mindoro, and Romblon. He has also served as the Deputy Commander and subsequently designated as the Acting Commander of the Marine Environmental Protection Command, MEPCOM, where he was instrumental in the significant improvement of the living condition and teamwork of personnel assigned of NEPCOM headquarters.
Coast Guard Officer Rank. Commission Officers: Vice Admiral, Rear Admiral, Commodore, Captain, Commander, Lieutenant Commander,
B.
Lieutenant,
Enforce law,
Lieutenant Junior Grade,
and
Ensign.
regulations for the promotion
Mandates,
of safety
Mission, and Vision.
property within the
Mandates. The Philippine Coast Guard is mandated and responsible to perform maritime search and rescue, maritime law enforcement, maritime safety, marine environmental protection, and maritime security.
facilities for the promotion
Vision. By 2028,
over the
PCG is a world-class guardian of the sea committed to save lives,
the Philippines.
ensure safe maritime transport,
Sinasabi
cleaner
ng
seas, and secure maritime jurisdiction.
Pilipinas ay kinakailangan
Mission:
nila ang
We are uniform armed service that implements and enforces all national and international maritime safety, security, search and rescue, and marine environmental protection laws in support of integrated maritime transportation network objectives,
ng Pilipinas.
national security and economic development of the Philippines.
Republic Act Number 5173, an act creating a Philippine Coast Guard, prescribing its power and functions, appropriating unnecessary funds, therefore, and for other purposes. Section 1. Coast Guard Objectives. There is a hereby created in the Philippine Navy a major unit to be known as Philippine Coast Guard, which shall have the following general objectives. A. To enforce or assist in the enforcement of all applicable laws upon the high seas and waters subjects to the jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines. B.
Function of Philippine Coast Guard.
Marine safety or MARSA function is designed to help prevent or minimize unnecessary loss of life and properties at the sea. The seaworthiness of every vessel leaving the port is ensured through intensive mandatory pre-departure inspection, which include the compliance of a vessel to safety standard and prevention of vessel for sailing for failure to comply with standard, conduct of a random emergency readiness evaluation and operational readiness evaluation in the sports, conduct of a regular vessel safety inspection and public of notice, and the implementation of enforcement of navigational rules and designation of a sea lanes among others. Further, the PCG is also responsible in issuing permits and supervise all marine salvage operations. It is mandated to destroy or tow floating hazard to navigation such as but now limited to illegal fish traps and vessels. Moreover, navigational safety is ensured by operating and or maintaining and servicing 565 lighthouses and more than 44 navigational buoys around the country, which guide and ensure safety voyage to marines. Ang marine safety ay ginawa upang bawasan o palitin ang bilang ng pagkawala ng buhay ng tao at krimen sa dagat. Ang grupo ng PCG, sila ang responsibilidad para sa issuing permits at sila rin ang nangunguna sa marine salvage operation. Upang mapabuti pa ang seguridad sa dagat, ay gumagamit sila ng 565 lighthouse and 44 pataas na navigation upang mapanatili ang seguridad sa isang bansa. Marine Environmental Protection, the Philippines is a signatory to IMO Convention on Marine Population in 1973 and 1978. The Philippine Coast Guard under RA 9993 is the sole agency responsible for Philippine implementation of all conversation with regards to oil, pollution, prevention, migration, and control through the conduct of marine population, monitoring and control, enchantment of PCG capability, and oil spill response, operation, and enforcement of all marine environment law and regard marine environment protection. Sila ang tumutulong upang maisakatuparan ang misyon ng PCG upang maprotektahan at mapanatiling malinis ang dagat. Marine Search and Rescue, the Philippine Coast Guard in accordance with the Convention of a Safety of the Life at the Sea, is the National Marine Search and Rescue Service at the country. The Coast Guard Action Center at the PCG headquarters in the Manila by virtue of a current function and facilities service as the coordinating center of all research and rescue operation. The 12 Coast Guard districted and designated as a Marine Rescue Coordinating Council within their area of responsibility value, while the 59 Coast Guard stations are designated as Marine Rescue Sub-Center. The detachment under the station are designated as SAR unit. SAR organization maintain constantly mated watch center that operation 24 hours a day, continuously monitoring distress frequencies and containing Coast Guard foot and seaborne patrol with their area of responsibility. There is at least one division of squadron of Coast Guard auxiliary in each MRSC. When required, likewise, at least one deploy responsible team composed of a special operation group, medical team, K9 and rescue swimmer in organized at each Coast Guard district or MRCC, which can be dispatched immediately to any maritime land-based search and rescue operation. Marine Search and Rescue, sila ang nagbibigay tulong sa nangangailangan sa paghahanap. Gumagamit sila ng aircraft, vehicle, vessel, jet ski, rubber boat, at kung ano pang available na transportation. Marine security is another important function of PCG considering the archipelagic character of country. It is vital to exchange the security of a different marine zone to protect the integrity as a nation. In the performance of the function, the PCG contributes to maintain good order at the sea by conducting regular patrol, and surveillance from the safety of navigational of the ship, to safeguard ship from the illegal acts and promote freedom of navigation. The PCG is likewise made to secure explorational resource, utilize activity with the country marine justification. It is the Sea Marshal Program. The PCG manage composed security force composed of AFP, PNP, and PCG elements to protect voyage of passenger landed vessel in domestic routines. The Coast Guard also boasts of a newly established nationwide K9 unit composed of highly trained sniffing dog deployed in the major parts throughout the country. Ang PCG, sila ang tumutulong upang mapanatili at masaayos ang dagat. Sila rin na nagpapatrolya regularly at nagbibigay sila ng seguridad sa mga bangka sa dagat. Marine law enforcement. The PCG is likewise made to conduct marine law enforcement and to implement law in fisheries, immigration, traffic custom, forestry, force arm and explosive, human trafficking, dangerous drug, and controlled chemicals, and to implementation the reverse penal codes and all applicable law within the country, marine justification and battle transnational crimes, a submarine organized under 9 RA 9993. It is the debut by 21 government agencies to perform marine law enforcement function, direct towards the supervision of a privacy, smuggling approach, illegal fishing, illegal entry, human smuggling, illegal logging, drug trafficking, gun running, and terrorist act. Marine law enforcement, sila ang nagpapatupad ng batas para sa pangingisda, immigration, traffic and assertion, forestry, firearm and explosive, human trafficking, dangerous drug, and controlled chemicals. Sila ang nagpapatupad ng batas upang mas mapanatili at mas mapaayos ang kapaligiran.